Hello everyone! Just before we start today's video, let me briefly tell you that I have recently released a new EP with my experimental solo music project called Var Umn. This EP is called Ritual, which contains 4 tracks, each 30 minutes long, so you have 2 hours worth of rhythm and atmospheric raw animism, which you can use for your spiritual purposes, be those for rituals, meditation, to be used in traditional folk magic, etc. You can buy the digital copy of this EP at Bandcamp, and you can also listen to it on over 20 streaming music platforms such as Spotify, iTunes, Deezer, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Apple Music, and so on and so forth. I have extended the music genre I have been creating, raw animism, and now you have a long work that will last you for quite some time in your spiritual and magical endeavors. As some of you have already asked, of course, for something longer, right? So you could use it. And here it is. More information about this project in the links below at this video, and more information about this EP soon enough at Var Umn's own YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your time, your patience, and for listening. Now, let's start our today's video. Enjoy. Hello, my dear friends, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm Mari Theriger, and today I'm here to simply express an answer that has recently come to mind in relation to witches. Well, an answer to the question, why do witches appear or are related to the Halloween season? As you know, if you have been a subscriber of this channel for quite some time now, it is tradition in this channel to present subjects concerning witchcraft, magic, the occult and such during the month of October to enter in the mood of the season. And this year already there's been at least 2 videos on the origins of Halloween and on the witch religion, myths, legends and misconceptions around these themes. On these recent studies and previous studies on the figure of the witch, it has come to mind that witches are often associated with Halloween, right? I mean, not only it has become almost universally popular to dress as a witch for Halloween, but there's often decorations and stories and a whole set of subjects related to witches and the figure of the witch connected to Halloween. Most people don't question why the witch is indeed associated with Halloween, and I very much include myself in that because I've only made this same question a few hours before the taping of this video. The figure of the witch is so deeply rooted in the modern festivity of Halloween that it just seems natural that both should indeed be connected. However, looking at the origins of Halloween, or rather, the conceptions, cultures and belief systems that have progressively originated or gave rise eventually to Halloween, makes no sense witches being associated with Halloween. Even though as a fellow, let's say, pagan, perhaps without giving much thought to it, I could immediately say that the reason is behind this idea that witches are often on the threshold, on liminal spaces, and the origins of Halloween come from Samhain, a marking on the agrarian calendar as a yearly celebration that points to a shift in people's lives, or that the witch could be seen as a figure of transgression and occupies a position as an intermediary, reinforcing the contact between the world of the living and the world of the spirits, and so on and so forth. But that would be dismissing all the research done so far. So, why do witches appear on Halloween, and why are they so intimately connected to this festivity? The answer lies in Protestant religious beliefs. Nothing to do with paganism and nothing to do with the original beliefs of Samhain. The origins of Halloween are many in terms of belief systems and cultural influences, and not just pre-Christian in origin, mind you. And even when speaking of pre-Christian origins, even though Samhain has had a great influence on it, in great part due to Irish immigrants in the US, which brought a time of celebration perfectly blended with pagan and Christian conceptions, which helped eventually to create Halloween, and Halloween too eventually become a popular festivity worldwide through capitalism. Anyway, behind this celebration lies ancient festivals of pre-Christian Europe, mainly focused on the dead and the departed, and thus also focused on the other worldly realities in relation to the dead. Ancient festivals honoring the departed, the ancestors, worthy to be remembered, as well as other worldly entities whose relationships with the community of human persons was fundamental for the survival of humans, thus celebrated in animistic rituals and ceremonies, as spoken here before on other previous videos. These ancient events and festivals and the animistic belief systems behind them were not necessarily seen as something evil nor utterly good, but a necessity of human expression towards spirit entities and to maintain relationships with, well, such entities for the benefit of the human communities. It is indeed a time that was once better understood as a threshold of sorts to welcome ancestral spirits, but also within an animistic religious expression, there must be an intermediary work in order to rebuild and maintain a beneficial relationship between human communities and the communities of the others. So it was also a time to welcome tutelary spirits and all sorts of other than human persons which are responsible for the well-being of the whole under animistic agrarian rituals. We are often too quick to judge Christianity when it comes to the bad reputation that was constructed around these beliefs and celebrations, but we must remember that Christianity was never homogeneous, and there were many beliefs and sects and religions within the Christian world. And we must not also forget that much of the spread of early Christianity was actually done by pagans themselves, which saw Christianity and its religious figures as interesting conceptions to add to the already existing beliefs. So much so that the beliefs and religious conceptions of early Christianity, early Catholicism, up until the 10th and 11th centuries were fairly welcomed and incorporated into the remaining pagan beliefs in Europe. And the Christian God and or Jesus have become new deities to be added to the already existing deities of the pagans by the pagans themselves. So, looking at pre-modern Catholicism in Europe, it took very similar views to those of the pagan European cultures, and many pagan festivities were still allowed, and both pagan and Christian beliefs influenced one another. So, pre-modern Catholicism had pretty much the same views on this season and ancient festivals to honor the departed, celebrating the dead saints on the 1st of November and all departed souls the day after, and prayers were conducted to help the beloved, the recently departed, to leave purgatory to finally ascend into heaven. In fact, pre-modern Catholicism, when conducting funeral rites, these focused a lot more on the necessity to help the dead, the spirits of the dead, the souls of the dead, accelerate their way into paradise. So much more focused on helping the spirits of the departed into reaching the other side. Something we also see in the same ancient festivals and celebrations at this time of the year, which bears close resemblance to the animistic beliefs towards the ancestors in many different cultures, and even within shamanism as well, as an animistic expression, right? This necessity to conduct a ceremony and ritual towards the departed, the spirits of the dead, to help them reach their next existence. So Catholicism still also had these specific beliefs and necessities to the point that it was created the All Souls celebration, which functioned as a ceremony to also help the souls of absolutely anyone, everyone who has departed, even the unknown ones, especially those, and people who had died somewhere and no one knew about it, such as those lost at sea, and people in general, right? And most of all, those who had not properly received a burial or had any funeral rite conducted in their honor. So, not just to help guiding into the other world the departed beloved ones that were remembered. But everything changed in the Reformation period due to Protestant theology. And I believe it is worth repeating what I've said in other videos concerning this, well, this period of religious turmoil and wars. The Reformation period is precisely the moment of great reshape of the figure of the witch into a far more derogatory narrative, as the massive witch huntings occur precisely during the Reformation period. The great majority of deaths in the witch hunts history and executions for being a witch occur between 1580 and 1640, which is no ordinary period. It is the period of the wars on religion. That's when 80% of the victims accused of being witches or of performing witchcraft, perished, right? So Western Christianity is torn in half by the Reformation. The traditional religious world is completely annihilated, and people believe Satan or the devil is working extra hard to destroy Christianity for good, and also, therefore, the destruction of human race as well. So the old fear on witches that had been festering more or less since the 9th, 10th century is augmented during this period, the Reformation period, due to the late medieval beliefs witches practiced a religion controlled by the devil, in which the devil gave them supernatural powers. A belief itself created by Christianity. This fear, augmented by the Protestant Reformation, leads to religious zealots fighting to remove all evil from their societies to prepare the world for the second coming of Jesus. It takes quite a little bit of time for Jesus to come. No garden, we are not talking about tantric sex. Anyway, this is the reason behind the massive witch hunts and executions. Witch hunting ends when Catholics and Protestants, for some reason, come to the conclusion that God wants them to live with each other. So, during the Protestant Reformation, Protestant theology not only augmented the fear on witches and constructed a far worse identity for the witch, but it also changed the very concept of the purgatory. The idea of a middle ground between heaven and hell, in which the prayers of the living could help guide the dead to a state of grace, was utterly worthless and incompatible in and with the Calvinist doctrine of predestination, which holds the belief that God has a plan for every soul. As such, doesn't matter what people do and what others do for someone's soul, because God's plan for each soul cannot be changed. As late as the 17th century, Protestants were completely dismissing Hallowtide prayers, calling them superstition. It only got worse as the Reformation went on, and the fundamentalism of the Puritans gained ever more ground, as in their belief, souls were either in heaven or hell according to God's plan. Therefore, any spirit, any ghost and ghoul, any wandering soul on All Hallows Eve was neither a lost soul nor a returning one, as was believed by the Catholics, and as such prayers were necessary to lead them to grace, but rather, under puritanical religious thought, these were creatures of evil. And if this was evil, then witches were somehow responsible for it, because in Puritan thought, witches were responsible for the evils of the world. So anything evil would be related to them, to witches, as this was the belief that led to 80% of the historical deaths of victims accused of witchcraft. Not only that, but the puritanical view on women was highly misogynist. So being a witch was bad enough, but being a witch woman was even worse. Therefore, it would be witch women that would mostly be around Halloween, causing trouble to God-fearing people. And due to this, around the 17th century, folk traditions on Halloween focused much more on protecting homes and livestock from the evil eye of witches, which would be out there more than usual. It ceased to be a celebration of the end of the harvest to be a time for protecting one's home, property and way of life and religion and even soul from the wicked, blasphemous, transgressive behaviors of witches. So this is why Halloween is associated with witches and all things witch related, because of the Protestant witch craze. So, my dear friends, I do hope this video was useful. A witch doesn't become less or more powerful in Halloween. A witch finds its own power within and in its craft. So there was nothing to this day that was ever special for witches and witchcraft, aside from the fact that in pre-Christian ancient festivals and still within early Catholicism, this was one of the moments of the year auspicious for divinatory activities. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video, and as always, thank you for today. Until we meet again, my dear friends.